The 2026 Virginia redistricting referendum is roughly 2 weeks away, at that less than 2 weeks away, and suddenly, just 2 weeks out, we're seeing some record low approval rating numbers for Governor Abigail Spanberger in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So if you remember back to the 2025 Virginia gubernatorial election, Abigail Spanberger won across the Commonwealth by over 15 percentage points against then Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. So a very substantial margin for the governor, the now governor, in her election just about 6 months ago. But suddenly, Winsome Earl Sears and Abigail Spanberger's the margin of victory for Abigail Spanberger suddenly doesn't matter, really, in contrast to a new approval rating poll conducted just weeks out from this referendum vote that's set to take place in just less than 2 weeks. Abigail Spanberger showing that she's only approved of, by 47% to 46% of voters saying that they disapprove of the governor. 7% expressing no opinion at all. So this is substantial and very important, especially as we head into this redistricting referendum vote that's set to take place on April 21st of this year. As you can tell, these are the current congressional lines in the Commonwealth of Virginia, with I believe 5 of these being for Republicans and 6 for Democrats. So, of course, districts like the 9th, the 6th, the 5th, the 2nd, and the 1st being in favor of Republicans, districts such as the 4th, the 7th, the 3rd, the 10th, the 11th, and the 8th being in favor of the Democratic Party. But we're seeing something that's going to really shape up as Democrats have proposed this new map to respond as a response effort, is their reasoning, to states like Missouri and North Carolina, that of Texas as well, who are redrawing their lines in the middle of the decade as an effort to even the playing field, according to Democrats across the Commonwealth of Virginia. And this is the new map proposed. And if you're looking at it and saying, oh my gosh, this looks like a whole mess, it's probably because it is. I mean, this is what happens when we see maps get drawn like this, where we have a huge, almost a huge, really mess in most circumstances, to where Democrats are, poised to win every district except for over here in the 9th in Southwest Virginia. The 6th even is leaning Democratic districts. What they've done is swooped into college towns and other blue parts of the state and grabbed some votes here and there and made a district. And that's what gerrymandering does across the Commonwealth and does across the country, really. So the question is are Virginia voters going to approve of this amendment to redo the congressional lines in the Commonwealth, given, these new approval ratings? According to this new poll, Abigail Spanberger is only approved of by, 47% of voters to 46% saying they disapprove of the job she's doing. Or is Southwest Virginia and other areas that are going to be disenfranchised here by only having one vote, are they going to be able to turn out voters similar to that of 2021, get people to the polls, and win this referendum ballot? Well, that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, including the fact what this means for the future of the Commonwealth as well. So, with that said, let's take a look at the 2025 Attorney General race in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Jay Jones won this race by about 7 percentage points to incumbent Attorney General Jason Miyares. Now, if you remember this race, you may remember it from a lot of scandals that happened. Took place in the later month, really, of this campaign. I think some scandals started coming out about Jay Jones, I want to say at the end of September, maybe beginning of October, and that really poised the whole rhetoric of the campaign, not only for Attorney General, but for Lieutenant Governor and for Governor in 2025. A lot of, not only Jason Miyares, but of course, Winsome Earl Sears and John Reed were trying to position their opponents as a balance on Jay Jones. But ultimately, it didn't end up mattering. It didn't end up being that much of an impact, given the fact that Jay Jones still won this race by 7 points. I mean, we're talking about a pretty substantial margin. He outperformed Kamala Harris in the Commonwealth in this race in 2025. And there was areas, if you want to look at them, to see where he outperformed Kamala Harris, which I found to be very interesting. But nonetheless, this race is important in my opinion because I think this is going to be somewhat of a similar margin to that of what we see in this redistricting referendum that's set to take place in less than 2 weeks. I think we're going to see a similar margin, that of probably less than this, though. I'm going to say about 5 percentage point margin in favor likely of Democrats of the Vote Yes campaign. But I think that Republicans have a real opportunity here to really say to Virginia voters, do you really want a map that favors Democrats 10-1, only having one congressional district that is in favor of Republicans and 10 in favor of Democrats? Is that what Virginia voters want? And specifically, is that what, these really deep red areas in the Commonwealth of Virginia, is that what they want? I mean, Southwest Virginia is going to be the only area that has a Republican representing them in Congress after this, and even Southwest Virginia is going to really, I believe, turn out in favor of voting no to this redistricting referendum that is going to really disenfranchise a lot of voters in the Commonwealth of Virginia across the board. Like I said before, Democrats are arguing that this is a counter to that of what's being done in North Carolina, in Missouri, in Texas. It's to counter that and to say to those the people in Texas, the people in Missouri, the people in North Carolina, the Democratic voters there. It's to say, hey, we know you've lost your representation there, but we're going to give it back to you. And therefore, those seats that are given to Republicans, like I said, in North Carolina, in Missouri, in Texas, those are going to be taken away from voters in Virginia. So you can believe what you want about the redistricting referendum. You can choose to support it or to not support it. But ultimately, that's the arguments being taken place here across the board. So given this redistricting referendum, let's take a look at some of the polling numbers that have been conducted in this race. It's not a ton, given the fact that we really haven't known about this, but for a little over probably about 4 months now, I guess. The first poll was conducted by Christopher Newport University in January, but at that point it wasn't even completely finalized in the state legislature. As you know, we've talked about this on this channel a little bit, but I've been off and on sickness and of course finishing up college for the semester, so I've been taking a big backseat on this channel and talking a lot about these races, but of course we're talking about it today, so we'll get into that. So like I said, the first poll that was conducted, Christopher Newport University, January 13th through the 20th, this had the Yes campaign winning 51% to 43%, 8-point margin there. Go up to Roanoke College, February 9th through the 16th, the No campaign was winning by 8 points. Of course, I don't believe either campaign is winning by 8 points, and of course, these polling numbers are quite old at this point. I mean, multiple months old at this point, and don't really give a clear picture of what the current, I should say, perspective of the race is in Virginia. So we had some polling conducted at the end of March and beginning of April, which I found to be interesting. The Washington Post had a poll that had the Yes campaign winning by about 5 percentage points. Core Strategies, which is a Republican-leaning pollster, had it winning by almost 10 points, 9. And of course, you can read through the phrasing of the question that was asked to voters and decide for yourself if this is a fair representation of how voters should be asked about this question or not. But that is the question, and that is the question of how voters would vote on a redistricting referendum similar to this. Neighborhood Research conducted a poll. This must have just recently been released because I didn't even see it before making this video, but had the No campaign winning by 1 point, but the margin of error there is pretty huge, 5.5%. So, of course, really a big swing, and only 319 people polled. So overall, I think the polling in this redistricting referendum is that of it's very poor. I'll be honest. The polling here is just awful, if I'm being completely blunt. And even the ballot questions, the phrasing for the ballot questions on how to ask voters if they are going to support this or not in a poll is also quite poor, in my opinion. So there's that. Of course, you didn't ask for my opinion, but I guess I give it to you. So going into, just 2 weeks away from really from now, I mean, we're less than 2 weeks really. What's going to happen in this race, and what does Governor Spanberger's approval rating have to do with all of this? Well, I think that this yes campaign ends up passing. Why? Because I think it's hard to look at the numbers from the 2025 governor and attorney general campaigns, Governor Spanberger winning by over 15 percentage points, Jay Jones even through scandals, winning by 7 points, and say that this redistricting referendum, that the Republicans have the upper hand here. They just don't. The environment's not in their favor, according to, from races not only in the Commonwealth that we've seen last year, but also across the board. I mean, we've seen races this past Tuesday in Wisconsin, in Georgia, that Republicans were underperforming those numbers that they needed to see. I mean, we had a Wisconsin Supreme Court race being decided by huge margins in favor of the Democratic-leaning Supreme Court justice compared to that of the Republican-leaning Supreme Court justice. And then similarly in Marjorie Taylor Greene's old district. I mean, Fuller only winning that race by about 10 percentage points last I checked. So these are really important notes as we go into this redistricting referendum and how voters are going to decide this. Of course, Republicans are obviously going to be frustrated with at least across the Commonwealth, with how this is being done. They're going to say, no, this isn't fair. And if you really look at it from a very fair perspective, it's not fair. But you have to understand the Democrats' argument, and you have to see both perspectives there to completely get it. So with that said, I think that this yes campaign wins. I think Virginia is redistricted to these new maps after April 21st. But the interesting thing following that's going to be what the Supreme Court of Virginia and courts overall decide to do with this. Are they going to, to keep these maps, or are they going to throw them out? Because that's not yet clear either. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm really interested to see how this campaign folds out, especially with these new approval rating numbers for Governor Spanberger. Something that I don't think a lot of people seen coming, given the fact that Governor Youngkin was approved of by large numbers, and Governor Spanberger's victory margin really pointed to that of her being approved of by a large margin, but that not being the case in these early polling numbers being conducted in this race. So, of course, with that said, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think that that the governor's approval rating has a huge impact on this race for the redistricting amendment, or do you believe it's not going to really matter at all? What do you think is going to happen on April 21st? Do you think that Republicans are going to be able to really overperform the expectations and come out ahead in this redistricting fight, or do you believe that Democrats pull it out? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to read through your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching.